Deborah, step away from the lockbox. That's private property. Her hand stopped mid-air, fingers still curled like she thought she could pretend she hadn't been about to open it. It violates Code 3C, she sniffed. No unauthorized attachments to visible exterior surfaces. Code 3C doesn't apply to legacy fixtures. I folded my arms. And that lockbox? It's not some Amazon gimmick. It was installed for the VA nurse who came every morning to help my brother out of bed before he couldn't stand on his own. That slowed her, but I didn't give her the satisfaction of silence. And that rule you're waving around? I pointed to the clipboard tucked under her arm. Still pulled from the 2019 compliance list. You didn't check the server, did you? That system still runs on code I wrote. I updated the entire structure last month. That rule doesn't exist anymore. My name's Daniel Rourke. I'm a mechanical engineer, a father, and the legal owner of the house my brother died in. He left it to me and my daughter 6 months ago, along with a folder of security access logs and a handwritten note that said, "Keep this place safe. It's not just about property rights. It's about what he built and what he left behind. And now, I'm the wrong guy for the HOA to pick a fight with." Where are you watching from? Drop it below, and stick around. Because the woman trying to control this neighborhood just made her first mistake. Deborah stepped back like the porch had gotten hotter. Her lips moved, but no sound came out. Then she clicked her pen shut with unnecessary force and started writing on the clipboard again. "This'll be reviewed," she muttered. "Expect a fine in the mail." I didn't answer. She could talk to my recycle bin when it arrived. She turned without another word and made her way back down the concrete steps, heels tapping with more pride than purpose. From the window, I saw her paw. Used to snap a photo of the curb before disappearing into her SUV. Inside, Liv stood just behind the curtain, watching. "You okay?" I asked. She shrugged. "You didn't yell." "Didn't have to." She didn't ask what the fight was about. Liv understood more than most adults. That box, weather-stained and crooked, had been there since before she was tall enough to reach it. It was part of the house, like the bench under the elm or the scratches on the banister where Michael's wheelchair used to catch. That bench. He carved it himself during one of his good summers. Said it was for when the house needed to sit down with him, not the other way around. It was where he'd made me promise not to sell, to keep it in the family, to make sure Liv always had a place she could come back to if life ever got hard. I remember sitting there with him after the diagnosis got worse, just listening to the wind cut through the trees like the house was breathing for him. I didn't cry then, but I promised. The HOA didn't care. Not about the history, not about the man who'd organized every veteran's barbecue for 7 years, not about the smart home systems he'd coded from scratch when his hands still worked. First month I moved in, I got 3 notices, one for non-standard flag display, the American flag folded from his funeral, displayed in a triangular case by the front window, one for bike obstruction, Liv's bicycle, chained neatly by the porch, and another for exterior lighting inconsistency, because I swapped the yellow bulb he hated for a white one. I thought it was just bureaucracy, that it would stop. But it didn't. They escalated, quietly, methodically, like termites in drywall. Every notice felt like a rewrite of my brother's memory. They wanted to sanitize the house into compliance, paint over everything that made it his. I read their rulebook. I rewired half their systems. I triar. I set the security gate firmware back to a neglected server farm with open ports and no password protocol. They were amateurs dressed like professionals, and now they were coming for a lockbox they didn't understand. That morning, I'd checked the porch cam logs. The motion sensor built into the old porch light, one of the few things Michael trusted enough to install on his own, was still linked to a cloud drive under his old developer account. He'd never deleted it. Clarissa didn't know that, neither did Deborah, but I did. I watched the recording twice, Deborah stepping over the threshold, glancing around like she thought she was alone, then crouching in front of the box with her pen poised like a scalpel. I saved the footage, uploaded it to 3 separate drives. That was how you preserved truth, by backing it up before someone could erase it. That lockbox wasn't just old metal and screws, it was the last thing Michael touched before he passed. And today, it became the first line I refused to let them cross. The next morning, orange spray paint circled the curb near my driveway, tight arcs around my usual guest parking spot, the kind of orange Clarissa's crew used whenever they wanted something to look official without going through the effort of making it legal. A paper notice duct taped to my mailbox read, "Reserved, emergency access only, violators subject to towing, no signature, no HOA letterhead, no vote." Liv stood beside me, squinting at the lines. They can't just do that, right? Not without zoning authority. I peeled the paper off and folded it. That curb belongs to the city. They don't get to rewrite property lines with a can of paint. She exhaled through her nose. They really hate us. They hated your uncle first, I muttered. I'm just keeping the grudge alive. Back inside, I opened the old terminal Michael built into the office wall. Still dusty around the cooling fan, but the guts ran clean. I logged into the HOA gate system, same credentials as always. The logs showed 2 entries the night before, E9:52 p.m. Pedestrian gate accessed, 10:03 p.m. Garage path opened, same ID both times, HOA MGMT generic. I flagged the entries, exported a report, and encrypted it to an external drive. No names attached, no reason given. But I was starting to see a pattern. Before I moved here, I thought HOA meant community, guidelines, maintenance, a group that helped mow lawns and settle neighborly disputes. Turns out it's more like a private government, only worse because nobody audits them unless someone fights back. I emailed the city zoning office a request for any emergency use reclassification in the past 60 days, attached a photo of the painted curb and flagged it as unauthorized marking. I copied my old college buddy Greg, who went into property law. Then I printed the city zoning map, black and white, official. I taped it to the front door with painter's tape directly under the house number. Liv raised an eyebrow when she saw it. Subtle. Clarissa likes printouts. I'm just returning the favor. That afternoon, Clarissa showed up. No clipboard, just sunglasses and a smooth, practiced smile. She didn't come up the steps, just hovered at the bottom like a snake waiting to strike. I noticed some confusion about parking, she said. We've had concerns about access for emergency services. I stepped onto the porch and looked her dead in the eye. My brother was a disabled vet, needed emergency care more than anyone in this neighborhood. Funny, you never painted any curbs for him. She flinched. Not much, but enough. I'm sure this doesn't need to turn adversarial, she said tightly. We're all part of the same community. Great. Let's be transparent then. I've filed a zoning inquiry, and I'll be requesting a financial audit of HOA expenditures. Just want to be sure that emergency paint came from approved funds. Her mouth opened, then shut. If there's a problem, I added, you can bring it up at the next board meeting, but I expect you'll have receipts. Clarissa turned and walked off without another word. From across the street I caught movement. Barry Tilden, the HOA treasurer, standing behind his hedge with a garden hose in one hand. The hose wasn't running. He wasn't trimming anything. He just stood there, watching. When our eyes met, he looked away. Later, I dug out a notebook from the back of Michael's garage cabinet. Thick, spiral-bound, pages worn with grease smudges and black ink. It wasn't for building specs. It was code. System flows, alarm triggers, HOA gate logic. One page was marked with a red corner fold. ID 17 is backdoor coded. Will override local rules. Don't trust it. The handwriting was unmistakable. Liv came into the kitchen as I flipped through it. You planning something? Not yet. She tilted her head. You've got that look again. What look? The one that says someone's going to regret underestimating you. I smiled faintly. That obvious? She shrugged. Uncle Mike used to get the same look. I closed the book and slid it into my desk drawer. Let them think this was about parking. It wasn't. It was about boundaries and who had the right to draw them. It was a quiet Saturday. I was raking leaves along the back fence, the air thick with that crisp, dry scent of early spring. Then came her voice, smug, self-important, cutting through like a blade. Your vines are crossing into common airspace. That's a violation. Clarissa stood behind the fence gate, one hand already on the latch. I didn't invite her in, but she pushed through anyway. Vegetation encroachment, she clarified, scanning the fence line like she was about to issue a citation. This area is visible from the community walking path. Non-compliance can result in fines. I dropped the rake and turned. That fence has stood for 10 years. My brother planted those vines in rehab therapy. They're not hurting anyone. Intent matters, she replied, especially when it compromises neighborhood appearance. Neighborhood appearance? I repeated. That's your new phrase for grief? That's when I saw Barry. He stood just outside the fence, holding a measuring wheel and clipboard. His eyes didn't meet mine. "Barry," I called, "you helped install this fence. You remember that, right?" He shifted, adjusted his glasses, and said nothing. Clarissa answered for him. "We're here for inspection. Standard policy." "You don't get to redefine standards," I said. "I've read every bylaw. This inspection wasn't scheduled. You're trespassing." Barry opened his mouth, then closed it. His hand shook slightly as he scribbled something. The wheel didn't even roll. It dragged. Clarissa smiled without warmth. "We'll send you a notice. You can respond formally if you choose." "You'll be hearing from me either way," I said. She nodded once and turned back toward the gate. Barry hesitated a beat longer, then followed without a word. I watched him go, disappointment curdling in my chest. Back inside, I sat on the back step. Liv handed me a cold soda, her silence asking questions she didn't want to say out loud. "She's not stopping, is she?" she finally said. "Nope. She's trying to erase him. She's trying to erase everything that doesn't follow her script." I leaned back against the step and looked toward the old vine creeping over the fence. A couple leaves stirred in the wind, lazy and green. Michael used to trim those vines with clumsy hands, his left side weaker after the second stroke. He used to joke that the plants were more patient than people. I got up, walked to the shed, and pulled down the garden ledger Michael kept. Dust clung to the cover, but his handwriting still etched bold across the pages. Dates, weather notes, fertilizer ratios, sketches of plant layouts. Tucked in the back was a small folded slip labeled "Clarissa, Vine Placement Approved, 2018. Her initials, her signature, next to a tiny sketch of the exact stretch of fence they'd just tried to find me for. I took a photo and uploaded it, labeled it under "Precedent." That evening, Liv and I went for a walk. We circled the block and came back just as the sun dipped behind the trees. As we passed Barry's place, I noticed something wedged in his front railing, a slim white envelope marked in rushed handwriting. Unit 17, Maintenance. Clarissa's hand, no mistaking the sharp angles. Liv looked at me. "You think she's feeding him orders?" I didn't answer, just pulled out my phone and snapped a picture. Back home, I added it to the folder, beside the garden ledger scan, the curb photos, the zoning map, and the keyless entry logs from last week. The pattern wasn't just control, it was erasure. Every piece of this house that bore my brother's fingerprints, she was targeting them one by one. I opened a new subfolder and labeled it Intent. Whatever she thought she was building, I was starting to build something else, a timeline. Drop your city or country in the comments. I want to know where you're watching from. And stick around, because what Clarissa just crossed wasn't a property line, it was personal. I found the envelope just after breakfast, wedged under the front door, no stamp, no letterhead. It looked like junk mail, but it wasn't. It was personal. Inside, a notice demanding $600 for community disruption and willful non-compliance. No rule citation, no HOA signature, no official seal. Just a number and a threat. Liv leaned over the counter. "They're really trying to bill us now?" "Trying," I said, flipping the page. "It's not a real fine. There's no vote on record, no documentation. It's a scare tactic." I scanned it, flagged it fabrication, and added it to the growing evidence folder. Then I called Greg. He answered fast. "New problem?" I told him about the so-called fine. "You're kidding," he muttered. "Is it even signed?" "Nope, it's a blank threat with a dollar sign." "Good. That means they just crossed into legal territory. Email it. I'll put together a cease and desist letter. If they push further, we escalate." After the call, I dug out Michael's old scanner from the hallway closet. Dusty, but reliable. I remembered how he used it to digitize his discharge paperwork when his hands shook too badly to write. He'd insisted on scanning everything himself, even when it took twice as long. The scanner still worked. I ran the document through OCR and compared the wording to a file Michael had saved back in 2017. Different names, nearly identical phrasing, same willful interference, same community disruption. They'd recycled old fines like dirty laundry. I printed both documents and stapled them side by side, one more duplicate threat in their playbook. Around noon, Clarissa showed up. No clipboard this time, just her arms folded like she was carrying invisible authority. "You received the notice?" I did. "And you understand the seriousness of ignoring HOA protocol?" "Clarissa," I said, keeping my voice level, "you're not issuing protocol. You're printing fiction." Her mouth twitched. Refusing comply.
Ants complicates your status.
This isn't about vines, curbs, or noise complaints anymore. It's about abuse of power, and I'm not the only one noticing. She followed my gaze. Across the street, two neighbors stood in their yards, pretending not to listen. But their eyes told the truth. Clarissa shifted. You're isolating yourself. No, I said. You're trying to isolate everyone who remembers when this neighborhood actually meant something. Her voice dropped. You're out of line. And you're out of rules. She didn't answer, just turned and walked away, less confidently this time. That evening, I laid everything out on the dining table. Notebooks, screenshots, scanned pages. The folder was thicker now, organized, labeled, dated. Liv walked past, paused at the table, and raised an eyebrow. You planning a lawsuit or writing a memoir? Both, maybe. She picked up one of the stapled documents and flipped through it. You're playing this smart. Trying to, but I need one more piece. What? Intent. They can call everything else a misunderstanding unless I can show it's targeted. She thought for a second, then pointed to the garden ledger. Didn't Michael say Clarissa used to sign off on all the landscaping stuff personally? I nodded slowly. Yeah, she signed his approval form for the vines. Then that's your intent. She gave him permission years ago. Now she's pretending it never happened. I opened the scan, highlighted her signature, and added it to the new subfolder. Targeting. There was a time I thought this would die down, that if I stayed calm and rational, they'd back off. But Clarissa wasn't looking for cooperation. She wanted submission, quiet compliance, a clean slate where she could erase anything inconvenient. I wasn't giving her one. By nightfall, I'd finalized the email to Greg, attached every document, every comparison, every log. At the end, I wrote, they're not enforcing rules. They're rewriting history, and I wasn't about to let them. The night the ceiling vent began whistling, I didn't think much of it. Maybe insulation shifting, maybe a mouse. It was March in Colorado. Houses made sounds. But when I checked the crawlspace access under the pantry, I noticed something off. The lock had been turned, not broken, just misaligned, like someone had opened it without knowing how to close it properly. I crouched down, pulled the flashlight from the drawer, and unlatched the panel. Liv called from the hallway. You going in there? Won't be long. The air shifted the moment I dropped below. Cold, damp, a sharp contrast from the dry warmth upstairs. My boots sank slightly into the packed dirt floor as I moved. The flashlight flickered. Cheap batteries, probably. I scanned the low beams and insulation, trying to remember how much of this Michael had rewired himself. He hated this space, said it felt like the house's lungs, tight, dark, and full of breath you didn't want to breathe. About 10 feet in, my foot hit something solid, a plastic container, nearly buried in loose earth. I knelt, wiped the top clean. No label, just a black lid and the outline of duct tape peeled long ago. Inside were paper files, old photo prints, and a digital recorder. I turned it over, still intact. I clicked the switch. Nothing. The batteries were gone, corroded at the terminals. I slid the recorder into my jacket and opened one of the folders. A flash of handwriting caught my eye. Michael's, meeting notes, September 2019. I flipped through, not HOA minutes, but transcripts, conversations, word-for-word accounts of board members discussing quiet adjustments to policy visibility, back-end key duplication, and one note in all caps. Clarissa said she wants blank authority for units 14 to 18. My house was 17. The back of the page had a taped-on sticky note, faint but legible. Use only if necessary. She'll come for the rest. I stuffed the folder into my bag, paused, then scanned the space again. Behind the beam closest to the entry hatch, another file sat wedged between insulation and brick, smaller, gray envelope, unmarked. Inside, a single key with a red tag and a post-it. Unit 17 copy, not logged. I stared at it longer than I should have. Who made the copy? Why hide it here? Back upstairs, I laid the items out on the dining table. The room was quiet except for the low hum of the fridge. Liv emerged from the hallway and stopped when she saw everything. You found something? Yeah. I opened the file. These are transcripts, not minutes, actual conversations. Things Michael overheard or maybe recorded. This one's from a board meeting, off the books. Clarissa was trying to authorize duplicate master access. Liv read over my shoulder. Her face tightened. She wanted key access to 4 homes? Mine included. Probably Barry's too. He was Unit 16 before he moved across the street. She picked up the recorder. Think it still works? Not yet, but if I clean the contacts and find a matching battery, maybe. She turned it in her hands. Why didn't he tell you? He was probably trying to protect me. From her? From all of it. The envelope with the key sat between us. Neither of us touched it. Do we tell someone? She asked. I looked at the recorder, then at the files. No, not yet. Not until we know what's on this. That night, I stayed up late restoring the recorder, cleaned the corrosion with a cotton swab dipped in vinegar, rebuilt the battery slot using parts from an old radio, got it to power on by midnight, 1 audio file, dated October 3rd, 2019, file name, fenceline17.mp3. I pressed play. The recorder clicked. Static filled the room, followed by faint footsteps in a chair dragging across concrete. Then her voice, calm, composed, deliberate. It's easier if the keys are silent. No need to explain access if they never see the door open. Clarissa. Even through grainy playback, she sounded certain. Not scheming, just practiced. A man answered, nervous, unsure. Won't there be a record? There's no vote if we say it's maintenance. Barry won't object. He's manageable. I paused the tape. Liv had come into the room, leaning against the doorframe with her arms folded tight across her chest. She really say that? Yeah. I rewound 10 seconds and let her hear it herself. She doesn't need to know who holds the copies, just that they're secured. Then, I want access to units 14 through 18 before next cycle. If anyone asks, we'll say it's about standardization. Click, end of file. Liv sat at the table slowly, eyes wide. She picked houses. She picked people, I said, the ones who couldn't fight back, ones who wouldn't question it. I stared down at the recorder. My stomach was a knot of cold rage. She wanted quiet compliance. Michael couldn't chase her out. Ms. Laurie was recovering from a stroke. Barry never fought anything. Do you think she ever came in? The question stuck in my throat. I don't know. I stepped outside, crossed the porch, and checked the side gate. Still latched, still rusted, still engraved with Michael's initials in the corner post. I tested the hinge. Stiff, but functional. Back inside, I opened the laptop and uploaded the audio file. Labeled it, time-stamped it. Then I printed a transcript highlighting Clarissa's comments, the silent keys, the units, the manipulation of Barry. Liv sat beside me, flipping through old notes. She used to bring cookies to the HOA meetings, she muttered. I thought she was nice. She was rehearsing. Every smile was a setup. I slid open the dining room drawer. Inside was the old envelope from the crawl space. The unlogged key still rested inside. She wanted to own access, not just power, entry, control from the inside. Liv tapped the transcript. Why didn't Uncle Michael tell you about this? He probably wanted to spare me, or maybe he didn't think it'd get worse. I looked back at the screen. She made it worse. I walked into the garage. The air smelled of motor oil and cedar. Michael's old toolbox sat under the window, locked like always. I opened it. Third drawer down, backup surveillance cams, ones he never installed because Clarissa had blocked external devices without a vote. Hypocrite. I picked the smallest one, barely thicker than a pen cap, motion-triggered, battery-powered, discreet. I installed it behind the porch light housing, tucked under the glass, set it to ping the same cloud server Michael had set up years ago, the one still running under his dev credentials. Liv watched me work. You're building a net. I'm not letting her rewrite the record anymore. We tested the motion trigger. It caught the front gate, mailbox, and porch steps. Good enough. By the time the system was live, the sun was low. The air had that faint bite, pre-storm tension without the thunder. We sat at the bench under the elm, the one Michael carved himself. It creaked under our weight, same as always. She's not stopping, Liv said. Nope. You really think this'll be enough? No, but it's a start. The wind moved through the branches above us, scattering last year's leaves across the grass. Somewhere down the road, a dog barked once, then silence. She's not just coming for us, I said quietly. She's been doing this to everyone too tired or too alone to stop her. Liv leaned against my arm. So what now? I looked out across the yard, across the fence she once tried to call non-compliant, across the garden Michael couldn't finish. I stopped being polite. What would you do if someone held a key to your life without your consent? Let me know where you're watching from in the comments. Because next, someone who's stayed silent for too long is finally about to speak. By Tuesday morning, I was expecting another threat, a warning, a staged courtesy reminder about some imaginary infraction. Instead, I got an envelope, handwritten, creased down the middle, taped to my front door with blue painter's tape. No HOA logo, no return address. Just, for Daniel, please read alone. I brought it inside, peeled it open over the sink. One folded page, no greeting, no signature, but I knew the handwriting. There are things I should have said earlier, things I signed that I didn't understand. You're right, Michael didn't trust her. I didn't either. Not at first. But she knew how to corner people. She threatened to remove my name from the board for non-participation, said I'd be financially liable for obstruction. I've been watching. I know what you're doing. Please don't stop. You need to check line 17 on the March 2020 disbursement report. It's not what it claims to be. Liv stepped into the kitchen just as I finished reading. Who's it from? I held up the page. Barry? Her eyebrows shot up. He actually wrote something? Not just something, a confession. I walked to the file drawer and pulled out the 2020 HOA financial packet. I'd collected years of these, just in case. March 2020, line 17. Emergency entry hardware adjustment, 1,842/14, buried between two landscaping invoices. No board vote listed, no approval log, and no receipt on file. Liv stood over my shoulder. That's the key copies, isn't it? Yeah, labeled it as hardware adjustment to hide it. I scanned the page she deleted, ploded it, and cross-referenced the line item with a matching note buried in Michael's old handwritten minutes. Same dollar figure, same month. His note. Clarissa pushed this through without quorum. I sat back in the chair, exhaling slow. He saw it coming. Liv touched the back of my shoulder. And now Barry's finally speaking. I looked at the envelope again. The tape was crooked, the fold uneven. It wasn't the work of someone confident. It was the move of someone scared but done being silent. At noon, I saw Barry outside, not watering his lawn, not pretending to trim hedges, just standing. I crossed the street and walked up the path. He didn't move. I got your note. His eyes flicked toward mine, then away. I didn't know how else to get it to you. You did the right thing. His mouth twitched like he wanted to say more but didn't know how. She said I'd be personally liable if someone challenged the board, that I'd be sued. I panicked. I didn't think it would go this far. It always does, eventually. He nodded once. She kept saying it was temporary, that the keys were a backup. They were leverage. Barry looked tired. I was supposed to monitor you, not officially, but informally. I blinked. She asked you to spy? She called it logging unusual activity, said it was about protecting the community. From people like Michael? He winced. I didn't know she'd use that word until later. We stood there in silence. His hands trembled a little, the way my brothers used to on cold mornings. I can't undo it, Barry said quietly, but I can give you everything I saved. Emails, budget drafts. She always sent unofficial copies first. The real ones came after she edited them. My voice was calm but firm. I'll take all of it. That night, a thumb drive showed up in my mailbox inside a sandwich bag. No label, but the folder names were clear. Pre-approved drafts, vote cancellations, key request threads, bypass gate logs. I backed it up to 3 locations and added it to the chain of custody log I'd started building the week before. 1 copy for Greg, 1 for my safe, 1 for the upcoming meeting Clarissa didn't know I'd been invited to speak at. Liv leaned on the doorway as I closed the final backup. You think Barry's safe? He will be. The moment I make this public, she loses her hold on him. She nodded slowly. You ever think Uncle Mike would be proud of this? I stared at the bench through the window, the same one under the elm. Its shadow stretched long across the yard now. I think he left the map. I'm just following it. I waited until after sunset. Not because I needed the cover of darkness, but because Clarissa always struck when she thought people weren't watching. Liv helped me pack the old duffel bag, the one Michael used during his last stint in the hospital. We filled it with old extension cords, a broken camera body, and some rusted tools from the shed. From the outside, it looked like a careless stash of valuable gear left in a parked car. "Will she go for it?" Liv asked. "She always does." The real camera was already mounted behind the tinted dash, motion-triggered, synced to the same cloud Michael once used, backup wired to a private drive under the seat. This wasn't a bluff. It was a net, and it was tight. I parked the car across the curb, on public property exactly where Clarissa had painted her imaginary emergency access zone. I left the doors locked, windows cracked, and the back seat visible enough to show the contents inside. At 10:14 p.m., motion triggered. Clarissa walked into frame. No clipboard, no flashlight. Yet, just the glint of a keychain in her hand and the slow, precise way she checked the car's side mirrors before crouching by the lock. She didn't even hesitate. Inserted a key, tried the passenger door, then moved to the driver's side and tried again. When it didn't open, she pulled out her phone. The audio kicked in, muffled, distant, but clear. Yes, I think there's a child in the car," she said. I can hear a baby crying, I think. It's dark. Yes, I have access. I'm on the HOA safety board." I paused the feed, teeth clenched. She hadn't just tried to enter. She faked an emergency call, claimed a non-existent child was trapped inside my locked vehicle, parked legally on a public curb. Liv stared at the screen, horrified. "She's unhinged." "She's scared," I said. "She's losing grip." The police showed up 13 minutes later. One cruiser, lights off, no sirens. The responding officer was someone I recognized, Reyes, level-headed, the kind of guy who didn't like being used. The dashcam caught every second. Clarissa waving her badge, her voice turning syrupy. "I just thought I heard something. Wasn't sure if it was a baby or—" Reyes leaning in, peering through the glass. "Ma'am, this car is locked. No infant seats. No signs of a child. You're certain about the noise?" Clarissa stumbled. "Well, it sounded like it—" "And the key in your hand?" "Oh, just trying to secure the property. Safety protocols." "You don't own this vehicle." Reyes stepped back. His body language shifted, less curious, more formal. "Please wait right here." I didn't wait. I stepped out onto the porch with the printed timestamp logs and a portable tablet in hand. "Officer Reyes?" I called, keeping my voice steady. He looked up, eyes narrowing slightly. "Mr. Rourke? This is my car. That's my footage." I tapped the screen. Clarissa's face appeared, lit by the porch camera and the dash cam feed. Keys, entry attempt, false call. Reyes didn't blink. He just took the tablet from my hands and reviewed it in silence. Clarissa stammered behind him. "He's fabricating that. He's manipulating the angle. This is harassment." "No," I said quietly, stepping closer. "This is premeditated trespass, falsifying an emergency report, and attempted unlawful entry of private property." Reyes glanced between us. "We're going to need both parties to provide statements, but ma'am, I suggest you stop talking." Clarissa's mouth stayed open for a beat, then shut. Liv had come outside by then, arms crossed, phone in hand. She didn't say a word, but the red recording light on her screen said plenty. That moment, the silence, the shift in power, the way Clarissa couldn't spin fast enough to escape, wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. It just needed to be real. Clarissa didn't show up the next morning. No calls, no knock on the door, no paper slips tucked under windshield wipers, just a strange, fragile quiet. It wasn't relief, it was recoil. I knew that kind of silence. It came right before the next move. By 10 a.m., Reyes had already filed his preliminary report. Greg forwarded me a copy of the police statement along with a short message. "She's exposed. Do not speak to her directly. Let's go official." We'd prepared a cease and desist weeks ago. Now we had grounds to file it, with evidence, timeline, and sworn testimony if needed. I just needed to hit send. But before that, I called Barry. He answered like he'd been waiting. "You got her?" "She got herself." "I meant, did the officer believe you?" "Didn't need to. The footage did." There was a pause on the line. "I've never seen her get caught, not like that. She's unraveling, and now we make it count." After I hung up, I signed the paperwork Greg had sent. Formal language, notarized copies, official filing against Clarissa Penmore and the HOA board under civil trespass and misuse of emergency services statutes. It wasn't just about revenge. It was protection, documentation, closure. At noon, I walked the envelope down to the courthouse myself. I didn't want this part to be digital. I wanted to feel the weight of it in my hand. I wanted it to exist in the world, ink on paper, signature on seal. Back home, Liv met me on the porch. Done? I nodded. Feels different now, she said. Yeah, she's not knocking. She's hiding. And that's the first smart thing she's done all year. That afternoon, the HOA sent out a neighborhood-wide email blast. A situation involving a board member is currently under legal review. We appreciate your patience during this transitional period. Inquiries should be directed to Acting Treasurer, Mr. Tilden. Barry. Liv read it aloud and looked up. They're already trying to distance themselves. She made herself the whole show. Now the curtain's coming down. We weren't done. Greg recommended we call a private mediator to issue a temporary restraining order. While we didn't expect Clarissa to show up again, not right away, he wanted the paper trail bulletproof. I agreed. I also made copies of everything. Again, 3 drives, labeled, numbered, stored separately, because Michael taught me long ago the only defense against corruption was redundancy. Around 4, my phone buzzed, a number I didn't recognize. I answered anyway. Mr. Rourke? Yes. This is Kelly Ames. I'm the new acting chair for the HOA board. I'd like to formally invite you to our next meeting. We understand you have concerns that need to be addressed. She sounded cautious, like someone stepping into someone else's mess. I'll be there, I said. Bring chairs and a projector. She paused. A projector? You'll want to see everything in detail. She didn't argue. After the call, I sat in the kitchen and opened the bench ledger, the one Michael had used to record repairs and supply lists. Between weathered entries about paint colors and hardware stores, he'd written something on the inside of the back cover. They don't expect you to outlast them. That's where you win. Liv came in a few minutes later. I showed her. She read it, smiling faintly. He really saw all of this coming. He saw it, and he made sure I'd be ready. She sat across from me, flipping the pen over in her fingers. Are you ready? Yeah, I said, because next time I walk into that boardroom, it won't be to argue. It'll be to end this. Have you ever seen someone lose control the moment they thought they'd already won? Drop your city in the comments. I want to know where you're watching from. Because next, the neighborhood starts whispering, and Clarissa realizes silence can echo louder than threats. Clarissa's house is at still for days. No garden gloves on the front walk, no folded flyers clipped to doors, no rustle of her voice behind the HOA clipboard, just drawn curtains and a porch light that flickered once, then stayed off. But the neighborhood was louder than ever. It started with whispers, sidewalk conversations that stopped when engines passed, kids walking slower past her yard. A stroller paused longer than usual at the edge of her driveway. By Wednesday morning, someone had taped a flyer to the community bulletin board by the mailboxes. No name, no logo. Just bold text over a grainy screenshot. Do you know who holds your keys? Below it, a still of Clarissa mid-frame, her hand gripping the door handle of my car. Liv stared at it. You didn't make this? I shook my head. Didn't have to. We weren't the only ones watching anymore. At the market, a cashier I barely knew from Unit 21 asked if everything was okay on your street. When I said we were handling it, she just nodded. Too fast, like she'd been rehearsing concern for someone else. Around the corner from Clarissa's place, a family put up a new ring cam on their front door. Across from them, another neighbor started rewiring a motion sensor floodlight. It wasn't organized, no petitions, no protests, just quiet reaction. Defense. It told me everything I needed to know. At home, I updated Greg. He sent back one line. She's already lost. We're just formalizing it now. That night, Liv and I walked the block. It had become our evening ritual. Fresh air. Check the corners. Feel the pulse of the neighborhood without knocking on doors. Barry was outside watering his front steps. Not the plants, just the concrete. A nervous habit, maybe. He looked up, gave a small nod. Got another email from the board, he said. They're setting an emergency vote. Clarissa's suspension's on the table. Will it pass? He glanced around. 3 days ago, no. Today, they won't even need to count. We kept walking. Just past Unit 18, someone had posted a new sign on their lawn. All access to property requires consent, video recording in progress. I didn't know them, didn't need to. Clarissa had controlled this street with her voice, her presence, her authority. But once the silence turned against her, once the illusion cracked, her power folded in on itself. Liv broke the quiet. You think she's scared? I thought about it. Clarissa doesn't do scared, she does cornered. We turned back toward home. The sky above us was dark but clear, the kind of night that felt like it had something to say if you listened long enough. When we got to the porch, there was something new on our steps. A yellow envelope. I scanned the yard. No cars, no movement. Inside, a letter, handwritten. This time the pen trembled. You don't understand what you've started. I was trying to keep things safe, ordered, predictable. You've opened doors that shouldn't be opened. Let's talk before this gets worse. See, I handed it to Liv. She read it, then looked up. She's trying to frame it like she's the one protecting everyone. She always did. But now she's asking. Yeah, I said. That's new. I folded the letter and slid it into the evidence folder, right behind the cease and desist and audio transcript. Liv tilted her head. You gonna respond? No. Why not? Because talking would give her the illusion she still gets a seat at the table. Clarissa had ruled through intimidation and familiarity. She showed up in person, made her demands fee. Neighborly, made her violations sound like favors, but that only worked when people let her speak without consequence. Now, she didn't know how to fill the silence. The HOA meeting was held in the rec center, just like always, second Thursday of the month, folding chairs aligned in rows, a long plastic table up front pretending to be authority. Only this time, Clarissa wasn't behind it. She sat off to the side, hands folded, eyes lowered, no clipboard, no usual smug tilt of her chin, just a pale version of the woman who once walked this block like it was hers. Kelly Ames, the acting chair, gave me a small nod as I stepped inside. Barry stood near the water cooler, quiet, but he made eye contact this time. That was enough. The room was full. Neighbors who hadn't attended a meeting in years showed up, some with notepads, others with nothing but crossed arms and skeptical eyes. Even Mr. Delgado from Unit 9 came, and he hadn't spoken at one since 2015 when someone moved his bird feeder. Kelly cleared her throat. Before we begin standard agenda items, we've allotted 10 minutes to Mr. Rourke regarding recent board activity. Daniel? I stood, walked to the front, and didn't speak right away. Instead, I set the projector on the table, connected it to the laptop, and clicked open a folder marked C. Penmore, Unlawful Access Timeline. The first slide showed the dashcam image of Clarissa trying to unlock my car. Murmurs. The second slide played the audio, her voice on the 911 call. I think I hear a child. I have access. I turned the volume up just enough to make the silence afterward feel heavier. I didn't raise my voice, didn't posture, just turned to the crowd and said, "That's my car, those are my tools, that was a lie." Click. The next file was the scan of the March 2020 budget report, line 17 highlighted in yellow. Emergency hardware adjustment, $1,842.14. Below it, a note from Michael's handwriting dated the same month. No vote. She pushed it through. I spoke slowly. That's the exact cost of key duplication and lock programming at the vendor 2 towns over. She didn't use our vendors. She didn't want a paper trail. Clarissa shifted. Someone in the back coughed. Kelly didn't interrupt. Slide 4, the porch cam footage of her stepping past my gate without notice. Slide 5, the audio from the recorder found in the crawl space. She doesn't need to know who holds the copies. I paused there. Let it breathe. People weren't looking at me anymore. They were looking at her. I clicked one final slide, a scanned excerpt from the HOA bylaws. Section 4.2.3. No board member shall possess or duplicate resident access tools without board approval and consent from the homeowner. I closed the laptop. She violated our homes, our privacy, our trust. Clarissa opened her mouth. That audio wasn't authorized. It was recorded by a homeowner in his own home, I cut in, and submitted by his legal heir. Kelly raised her hand. Clarissa, please. Clarissa stood, shaky but defiant. You think this proves something? You think this is politics? Neighborhoods require order. I've kept this place safe. From who? I asked. From widows, veterans, kids on bikes? No one laughed. Barry stepped forward for the first time. He held up a printed email. She threatened to sue me for obstruction when I questioned her key policy, told me I'd lose my seat, said I wasn't aligned with compliance culture. I've kept this for 2 years. I was ashamed. You could feel the room turn. It wasn't loud. No gasps, just a collective tightening, eyebrows raised, arms unfolding. Kelly stood. We'll move to an internal review vote. Effective immediately, Clarissa Penmore is suspended from all HOA activities pending further investigation. Clarissa's voice broke. You can't do this. You already did, Kelly said. As I packed up, Liv gave me a quiet thumbs up from the second row. She hadn't spoken. She hadn't needed to. Truth made its own noise. A week after the meeting, the locks changed. Not just mine, every home from units 12 to 19 received official notice, free rekeying, consent forms signed and stored properly, HOA funded, transparent. This time no one used a master key to drop it off. Barry delivered mine personally. No folder, no formal speech, just an envelope and a quiet, tired smile. I pushed for you to be exempt from the dues on this, he said. No homeowner should have to pay for fixing what they didn't break. You sure you're still just treasurer? He gave a dry laugh. Technically, I'm interim co-chair now. It's a mess. Liv opened the door behind me, still in her workshop hoodie. Did they finally let you start shredding the old rulebook? They let me delete a few lines, more like sweeping out her fingerprints. He didn't say Clarissa's name. No one really did anymore. After he left, I walked the perimeter of the house, not looking for anything, just checking. The garden vines were growing back along the fence. Someone had cleaned up the old spray paint near the curb, and the porch light, where I'd hidden the first camera, still blinked quietly every few minutes. Michael would have liked that. Liv found me standing near the bench. She was holding something wrapped in a paper towel. I was organizing the garage, found this stuck in one of Uncle Mike's old folders. She handed it over, a handwritten note yellowing at the edges. If they take the keys, keep the bench. That's where we remember who we are. I unfolded it slower than I needed to. He must have known, not the details maybe, but the shape of it, the way power slips into quiet places and calls itself necessary. Michael had always been the kind of man who planned ahead, not for control, but for protection. We sat on the bench a while. The swing creaked the same way it always had, a familiar sound like the house breathing around us. No shouts, no surveillance, no flyers fluttering on the door, just calm. Across the street, someone had painted over their HOA sign, neutral gray, no explanation. Down the block, a neighbor posted a laminated note to their gate. Consent is not optional. Ring system active. Liv spotted chalk on the sidewalk in front of Unit 17. Welcome back, Daniel. Her grin tilted sideways. They really wrote your name. Guess they ran out of room for the guy who finally made her stop. She nudged me. You gonna keep the old lockbox? Yeah, I said. Not for storage, for the story. She nodded. You think it's really over? It's over enough. Inside, I opened the last letter from Greg. Settlement finalized, no appeal filed, resignation accepted. Clarissa Penmore is permanently barred from holding any HOA position in the state. Liv read over my shoulder. She's done? She can find a new neighborhood, but this one's closed. I walked to the porch, opened Michael's old toolbox, and pulled out the new key set. Clean cuts, fresh brass, no duplicates floating through board hands. I handed Liv the spare. She blinked. Me? You stayed. You asked the right questions. You listened when it counted. She held the key like it meant more than access. I won't lose it. You better not, I said. I'm only ever handing out one. We walked the fence line as dusk rolled in. The air felt different. Not lighter, but earned. Honest. At the back gate, Liv stopped and turned. You know what still gets me? What? She thought it was about power, but it was always about control. I nodded. She didn't want order. She wanted obedience. She didn't get either. No, I said. She got silence. The bench creaked as we sat again, just like we had the night we installed the camera. The elm above us rustled gently, shedding the last of winter's grip. The camera stayed. Not out of paranoia, out of principle. Some fights aren't about what you lose. They're about what you refuse to hand over. And for once, I wasn't the one standing at the door. I was the one holding the key. Ever had someone cross the line and call it order? Drop your story below and let me know where you're watching from. Because sometimes justice doesn't knock. Sometimes it holds the key before they do.